On this week's show, we're discussing what a Lego James Bond game could look like, has Horizon Zero Dawn had its homework copied, and all the other gaming news from this week rounded up right here on the GamerGuild Podcast. Good game, everyone, and welcome back to the GamerGuild Podcast, your weekly show where we get together and round up all the video game news for your listening or viewing pleasure right here on youtube.com/GamerGuildTV and up there in the digital clouds on your podcast platform of choice. Your podcast players for the week this week are myself, Chris, at Arcane Rogue, and coming back for his long-awaited return, the techie teacher at Adaxis LP still?
Still LP.
Still LP.
Still
Tom,
LP.
how you doing?
I am very good, Chris. How are you?
I'm good. We put the Christmas decorations up today, so I'm
you know
feeling festive.
Yeah, me too. Actually, I just got the lights on the tree earlier today, so I'm feeling it.
Getting there. We've both got some time off booked in at the end of the month, so it's just like it's that slow crawl towards having just time off work with the family, the children.
Season.
It is, but of course we're here to talk about video game news. Richie's away this week. If he hasn't already told you for the last 50 weeks maybe, he's moving into a different house, so that's finally happening. I know he's probably listened to this while he's grafting away on his new office, but Richie will be back this week. But thankfully we have the techie teacher popping back in for a long overdue recap, so we'll get into some news. You do have a great show lined up for you all, as I mentioned, talking about Lego, James Bond, Horizon, all that and much more. But before we get into all of it, don't forget to like, subscribe and ring-a-ding-ding that bell so you're kept in the loop with all the great content we do here on the channel, just like our live streams, just like our vertical looks, and more importantly, subs. Tom, I was talking about it just before we went live. On last week's show, we pleaded to our audience, help us out, share, comment, let your friends know. There's some wonderful people out there who've connected with other people to bring them into the community. We've seen our Discord server this week have a couple of new faces drop in, so hello to you. But then the YouTube algorithm, Tom, we've been saying ever since Stadia shut down, it's hated us. We plummeted, we froze, but we've clawed our way out of the Google algorithm well over the last year and a half. And we're on the precipice of 2K. Last week, we're 11 subs away. And then randomly this week, we're back down to 30 away. So they've killed, I don't know, dead accounts, sleeper accounts, bot accounts, whatever they usually mess up the algorithm. So we're back to needing about 30. And our aim is to get to 2K by the end of the year. So anyone out there who is helping with the algorithm, we do appreciate you all. So yeah, click like, drop a comment down below. Have you got your decorations up yet? Do let us know. But we have been doing some live streams still this past week. Myself and Richie jumped into Black Ops 6. You managed to jump into it, Tom? I'm interested to see what you have been playing. It's great. It's Call of Duty is... I don't want to say back because I've been a lapsed Call of Duty player for quite some years now due to just changes in interests and genres, and let's face it, we're just not quite as quick on the sticks as we used to be. But yeah, we've jumped in. We've done zombies. I'm playing through the campaign. The campaign's fantastic. Don't really know what's going on with the characters, but the actual solid mechanics of Call of Duty, it's always been best in class for a shooter for me anyway. And it's on Game Pass for the first time ever, so I didn't pay anything for it. I just got it for free. So
excellent, always a win.
That's the game for Game Pass. Where did you fall off with Call of Duty then? Because I'm no doubt you, like me, we were like Modern Warfare 2, living and breathing every single day of our youth.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head right there. I think, to be fair, it was Modern Warfare 2 was sort of like the absolute pinnacle of it. Yeah. I think I jumped back in and played a little bit of a couple of the Black Ops, but I couldn't pinpoint it, to be honest with you. It's not really ever been a series that has sort of like taken my fancy so much. I was always more of a Battlefield guy personally, but Modern Warfare 2 was definitely sort of like the like I said, the summit of it all, really.
Yeah, it was the zeitgeist, wasn't it? It was like you didn't know anyone who wasn't playing Modern Warfare.
It was the thing. Yeah.
It's the kickstart the shoes, and they've never looked back really since.
Nope.
And I think for me it was Black Ops 3 where they had Jeff Goldblum in the zombie campaign mode as like a character. He was like a magician-y, mystic ball kind of guy, and then didn't go back to it. So yeah, there are characters in this campaign which don't do it, but there are some trippy things. I was saying to Richie last week, they do a part where you kind of trip out on some kind of... you inhale something in one of the levels, and mannequins chase you, Doctor Who style, like the angels, where you turn your back to them and you can hear mannequins move, and you look back and they're all frozen. Wow. And I did not expect that from a Call of Duty campaign, but it scared the shit out of me. So
that sounds awesome.
It's worth checking out.
Yeah.
This last week on the channel, I've also been doing a run up to Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which comes out next week now. It's just over a week away. So I've been playing all the old Indiana Jones games. So I went back to PlayStation 2's Emperor's Tomb, Staff of Kings. I've been playing the Lego Indiana Jones games. I am tempted to go and look at the Fate of Atlantis, which was the point-and-click adventure game from way back when with LucasArts. But I think it's on Steam, so I just need to see if I can find some time before the new one comes out. But yeah, testing the waters. Where are you at with Indiana Jones then? Does that pique your interests? You obviously like the Uncharted games and Tomb Raider, but...
Yeah, I mean, I'm very interested to see what they do with the new title for sure. But I've got to be honest with you, the last indie game I played literally was, as you said, like the old point and click adventures. It's been one of those series, I guess, really that sort of has missed the boat, hasn't it? A little bit on the gaming front. So we'll see if this is a winner.
Well, that's what I'm hoping for. It's I've still got my reservations about machine games. I think they're brilliant. Wolfenstein 1 and 2 reboot were terrific. So I trust them to make a game about killing Nazis. That's in their blood. It's just the choice to make it a first-person game with Indiana Jones. It still baffles me. I feel like if they'd committed and just went third-person and basically just made an Uncharted or Tomb Raider game, but with indie, that's the absolute smash it out the park, ballpark win. But them talking about immersion and putting you as indie first-person, I see where they're coming from. And they've said in the build-up to it, there's plenty of parts where the cutscenes are all obviously just shot like a movie, like Spielberg style. The when you climb up and you do so many traversal, the camera does pull back so you can see him climbing in third person. But I can't help but just think, just why not do the whole thing in third? And I'm like, I'm sure once I get into it, you'll kind of just get immersed and forget about it. But that's my only reservation still to this day. Troy Baker does a great job doing the voiceover of Harrison Ford by the looks of it. And again, it's on Game Pass. So...
Win.
Pay that for free. While we've got you, I guess, back, Tom, there's a couple of threads that I want to pull on from, I guess, the lead up to the end of the year. And one of them is the Xbox world of Indiana Jones comes out next spring on PlayStation 5. They've already confirmed that. They actually announced it at Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest. They did a big trailer and then went, and it's coming to PS5. And like you, me and Rich, I think we always lean more towards PlayStation. So to us, that's like big win. We get Indiana Jones. Where are you feeling with Xbox and them seemingly opening up the whole library now? In the last couple of months, we've had Sea of Thieves come over, we had Pentiment. It seems like Xbox games are moving over to PlayStation, and as someone who owns a PS5, do you care? Is this a good move from Xbox, or just thinking your business cap on as well, like what your overall takes?
It's a really good question, to be honest with you. I think the truth is that for the last couple of generations, that Sony have essentially won the console war in that front. I think, especially in the UK, if we were to look at like the sales comparison between console for console, I'm pretty sure the PS5 and the PS4 both outsold their Xbox counterparts. So I think locking those titles behind the console means less sales for those particular titles within this country. So naturally pushing them out to everything does mean more money in Microsoft pocket. I mean, I'm all for it. I'm all for play what you want wherever you want, really. I think that's kind of how the media survives moving forwards. I think games need to not be console like hardware locked. They need to be able to be fluid, I suppose, really. Because at the end of the day, everybody sort of buys into their one piece of hardware. You do get the dedicated gamer who wants to dabble in playing with everything, really. But for the most part, most people just stick to what they know. And I think it's in Microsoft's best interests, really, that the way that things are going with everything pushing towards like digital only and stuff like that, I think the idea of locking it behind a console, no matter what the title is, I think that's just gonna have to bite the bullet at this point. Because if it's digital only, what really is the point?
Yeah, what's a box actually doing?
Yeah, exactly.
If you're able to access the content, and we kind of had that a little bit, and with our Stadia days, and that's what they always struggled with is that digital ownership. But I feel like because the trusted brands of PlayStation, Xbox have been around for so long, there's not that uncertainty that we had with Google of like they could pull the plug, and they proved themselves wrong, didn't they? That they did shutter everything. But with Xbox and PlayStation, the same. The way everything's pivoting towards digital, it isn't almost a case of like, yeah, you can play stuff on, like, how many people play Call of Duty Mobile and Fortnite Mobile, and and like the youth of today, like our children, will grow up thinking of their phone probably first and foremost when it comes to gaming. It's not like us who think of a console or a PC. And we had that discussion many, many times over the years about actually the evolution of the next generation of gamers. It's not where the money's at. And Phil Spencer's came out many times and said, look, console market is not growing. It's hit a standstill. PC's seen a great growth, but it's mobile through and through. And seemingly, Xbox are just making this transition into becoming a publisher. Yeah. And I don't mind because I don't have that nostalgia and that, I guess, fanboy loyalty towards Xbox. I'm sure if I sat on the other side of the fence and PlayStation were doing it, I'd be like, what the F, Sony? Like, where you like die-hard fans, like, we'll do anything for you. But yeah, it's an interesting one to see grow, and I think Indiana Jones coming so quickly, like probably less than 6 months after launch on Xbox. Is it Microsoft just looking at the crunching the numbers and going, look, we'll get a double dip? They've got to look at the money they've just made on PlayStation, right? Like, PlayStation will take a 30% cut for Black Ops 6, but the rest of that 70%, all the millions and millions of copies sold on PlayStation, that's going in Microsoft's back pocket. Everyone who's got a Game Pass sub, it's going in their back pocket. So it's kind of like a win-win in some way.
Yeah, it is, and I think there's also sort of like a window as well, isn't there? Really, when a title that's been hyped about coming out is released, you do want to capitalize on that sort of interest more than anything. I think, if I remember correctly, I don't have numbers to actually back this up, but I'm pretty sure that the time between Final Fantasy 16 coming out on PlayStation 5, and then with Square Enix holding that back and Sony holding that back, when it eventually did release on PC, I actually think they had predicted more sales than they actually got, because they thought, there's this, this huge, epic, like very well received new Final Fantasy title. Granted, it's not 7 Rebirth remake, etc. But it was standalone and it was an excellent game. But when it actually came to PC, when they finally released it through Steam and so on, I'm pretty sure the numbers were actually far lower than what they thought. And I think it was just that length of time, really. And I think it's that kind of like exclusivity, those exclusivity deals when publishers are releasing specifically for a certain platform. Yeah. That's the thing that's going to hold back on those sales moving forwards.
Yeah, there's certain ones, there's certain genres, isn't there, which you need to be in the zeitgeist and in the moment. I think if you miss that window, it can just fall flat. Like, look at the epic failure of Concord, like earlier on this summer. Like, that was so bad it got pulled and cost them 400 million. It's like it's an odd, interesting place to be in this industry. But yeah, Xbox is seemingly making that move. We've got some new some stories in the news later on that kind of pertain to that, so we'll get around to all that one. Between me playing Lego and Black Ops and a multitude of other things, Tom, it's been a while. So you mentioned Final Fantasy there. Did you get around to finishing 16 eventually? I know I spoke last year, probably this time last year, how far through it you were. Where were we at on the gaming front? What were we playing between looking after the two little ones?
I am actually playing Final Fantasy 16 at the moment. I'm very much in my Final Fantasy world again at the moment. So I'm sort of jumping back and forth between 16 and Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. And I'm very much into 16 at the moment. I would say I am a good chunk of the way through the story. There've been some has it been long enough? It's been long enough, right? Long enough.
It's what, a year and a half, probably just over a year and a half. Yeah. I mean, spoilers if you want to say anything particular.
Yeah, about certain characters.
Yeah. How far in are we?
We are currently at the point where we are up against Titan.
It's a good fight.
Yeah. Yeah, we are very much in the heat of the armies sort of crashing in on the Crystal Dominion, the Dalmekian Republic, kind of like being the bastards that they are, basically. Very excited to see where the story goes, to be honest with you, because now I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't know what to spend any of these skill points on anymore, because I've got so much stuff going on that I'm a bit like.
Did you have the 2 DLCs as well?
Yes.
Included. So have you played them naturally throughout the campaign? Because I had to go
to be honest with you.
I was wondering where your skill points were at with that one.
No, I've not actually gone through the process of really exploring those at the moment. I think I really just wanted to get through the story and probably just go back after the event just to see how it all plays out.
So with your skill tree, it's in like a clock face, isn't it? Have you got all the clock face filled out?
No. I'd say I've got about half of it filled out so far.
Okay. I think after the
Yeah.
Titan fight, the more stuff
It starts
comes.
to.
Yeah. But
Okay.
yeah, I thought it was brilliant. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it was.
Yeah.
Was it my game of the year last year? I think Alan Wake 2 pipped it right at the end.
Yeah.
I don't know whether recency bias or something, but I fell in love with that. I had this moment last year with Alan Wake. I played the remaster straight into the launch of 2, and I was just like blown away by it absolutely. So it's like it just nicked in there. Otherwise, it probably would have been Final Fantasy 16. So yeah, someone who's never played it, I'm now in this really weird place where the others seem like an insane task to take on, like remake and rebirth, and then whatever the next one is.
Yep.
So I'm looking around thinking, what do I do in between them? But loved it all the same. Any other things you've been dabbling in?
I am on the cusp of potentially diving into Ghost of Tsushima for the first time as well, because I've not actually had the pleasure of experiencing that yet.
Wow.
So yeah, I might. I've got to be entirely honest with it. I have tried to stay like as far out of that as possible and just really experience it. So I've really tried to, I know bits and bobs about it, but I've not really gotten to any sort of point where I've looked quite in depth at the lore, in depth at the mechanics, and so on. Tried to sort of like distance myself from it because I guess I've always kind of known it's going to be a game I'm going to play like later down the line.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that's going to be on my Christmas hit list.
Ooh, you're in for an absolute treat. Make sure you play the director's cut.
That's the plan.
Yeah,
that's the plan.
That's the best one. That's got the Ishii Island DLC, I think, included as well, which is like a separate little mini area. But yeah, absolutely adored Ghost of Tsushima. I think that was my game of the year for 2020. Yeah. 2020, 21? Is it that long ago already? But I mean, the sequel comes out next year, so 5 years, probably about right.
That's the point.
Which if you enjoy it, yeah, that's a fantastic lead into it.
Definitely.
Lovely. Right, shall we get into some news, though? Tom, what's what we're here for. Of course, don't forget, everyone, our news is brought to you by the wonderful Guild Heroes, the fantastic members who support the channel that extra little bit further, just like you can, from as little as 99 pence. You can get content like this early, live streams early. My Lego series, Indiana Jones series, leading up to the new game has actually been dropping about a week early for members, so you've had some sneaky peeks behind the scenes access. Of course, you also get stickers and badges next to your name in the live streams when we play things like Call of Duty and such. But Tom, we can't get into the news until you introduce us in a special way.
Let's make it old school, yeah? Let's go the graciously gathered GamerGuild Gazette, aka the news!
The news!
That feels good.
It does feel good, doesn't it? We had a point a few months ago. Oh, it was when we did our 5-year anniversary, and we had a moment where we tried to recount all of the other shows, and we did actually. Richie rattled them off like the top of his head, with no reference points. He knows he's got them. I think he does it the most, so that probably makes sense. But we are here to talk about some video game news, Tom. A bit of a quiet week. We tend to see this every year. When it's Thanksgiving, it's like the whole gaming industry shuts down because they're all based stateside for the most part. So you got all like San Francisco and stuff down in LA. They just all go off with their family and eat some turkey and chill out. Rightly so. But over here, we're just kind of thinking it's a bit dry on the old video game front. But we did have a new story drop this morning. Story number 1. A Lego James Bond game was supposedly in the works at Traveller's Tales. So reading from the Gamer article, there was a trailer that's been leaked online. It shows multiple scenes from the James Bond franchise. We can't unfortunately show the video because apparently it's being pulled down by YouTube, rightly so, because it's probably leaked in a dodgy way. But we all remember the Lego games from franchises like the aforementioned Indiana Jones. We've had the Star Wars Lego games, Marvel, Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, what haven't they actually touched on? Jurassic Park, Jurassic World were one of my particular favorites. When I saw this morning, it was shared in our Discord, so shout out to the wonderful people in the Discord who bring us these kind of stories, because I might not have seen it otherwise. It dawned on me, I was like, Bond seems to be like a perfect fit for Lego. And the trailer, I don't know if you've watched the trailer on the Reddit thread, Tom. It just works. I'm thinking in terms of locations, character, puzzle solving. Bond basically fits that model of that Lego game style play and cooperative play that we love so much. He always usually has a sidekick. He's got plenty of gadgets to use, just like all the characters do. And if you're looking for a list of different people to play as, the Bond franchise must have about 100 plus now.
Surely.
But yeah, the trailer's leaked. Go have a look it up on Reddit. It's easy to find if you do want to. But basically, this was a proof of concept by TT Games that was shown off. It came around the time at the end of Lego Dimensions, if you remember that one, Tom. I had Lego Dimensions. I thought it was great. The little characters.
Yeah.
But then it was the opportunity to see like Back to the Future, E.T., Gremlins, stuff that was never going to get a fully fledged game, but it got to be in there with their own little zones. And yeah, apparently this was going to be kind of pitched as like the next big thing once the new Lego Dimensions wasn't going ahead with it. And I'm thinking, with the recent Lego Horizon game that came out, which was the Lego franchise going outside of TT Games, I'll put it over to you. What are your thoughts on a James Bond Lego game? Too violent, too sexually charged? Or could we can we overlook that? Because let's face it, James Bond's not quite as crazy as it used to be.
No, it's very tongue-in-cheek, isn't it? I suppose in a way, it's very sort of like, it's very meta. It's very self-aware of like its sense of humor and things like that, as well as the nature of the story. But you're absolutely right. I think it is a franchise that is like ripe for the picking for a Lego like series, really, isn't it? I mean, you've got your Lego Skywalker saga. You could easily make a James Bond 007 pack.
Yeah,
like you've got your eras. You've got like. I mean, I know the dreaded word within the community is DLC, but there's so much content there, isn't there? Really, that they've got plenty to dive into. So it seems like a miss for its time, really. I suppose more than anything. Lego Dimensions as well was, that was great. Again, same sort of thing with like Skylanders and stuff like that. Everybody's
Toys to Life.
Toys to Life.
Like I've
all
still
about it.
got all my figurines because it was that case of like all that IP we grew up with as a child. You would traditionally have to buy like a whole Lego set. As we see now, if you want to buy like an Indiana Jones Lego set, you're looking at 80, 90, upwards of £100 to get a boulder and a couple of like Amazonian looking trees and an Indiana Jones figurine. You can't just get the figurine. But the great thing with Dimensions is you just bought the little packs and you got like 2-3 characters per pack. So I've got a couple of Lord of the Rings ones. I've got a couple of Batman ones that didn't cost me a fortune because they were just little standalone games to life characters. And they were genuine Lego pieces that attached to like a little base stand. But yeah, I think you're right. In terms of Bond, like I'm picturing it now. You start at just like the MI5 building on the Thames. And each kind of room just has like an era. And you've got the Sean Connery, you've got Roger Moore. And each one of them branches out into just every movie has its own episode, just like Skywalker Saga did. It's all broken down.
Absolutely.
And like I was saying, like the gadgets work, grappling hooks, lasers, like puzzle solving. That is literally the epitome of what Bond does to get to the boss at the end. And let's face it, the villains have always been very campy, which leads into that Lego like nature of things, doesn't it? And it looks like this was from quite some time ago. We're talking like Lego Dimensions was what, 2016? So you're talking coming up on a decade ago. So clearly this isn't coming to market. But it is a shame where if they just keep it going, we've got a gap now in Bond where Daniel Craig's wrapped up. They haven't cast the new guy yet. When they do, you're probably looking at a 3-year production cycle to even get a movie and script together and out. So there is this void that could be filled with a bit of nostalgia because we haven't had a Bond game in quite some time. I actually played one on the channel probably about a year ago. I played 007 Bloodstone, if you've ever heard of that one.
Yes.
So that was made using the Call of Duty engine, and it was made by the Call of Duty team when they had like some random movie licensing back in the day. And it's Daniel Craig's James Bond. It's third person. And it played really, really fun. I had a great time with it. But it gets to the end, you're on a bridge, and a kind of like drone jet comes through, blows up the bridge. Your inside woman, she gets killed. And then it just ends and says James Bond will return. And I was like, that's the end of the game. Went to look it up, never made a follow-up. It never got into production. So I'm sat there with this like 10-year-old cliffhanger. Didn't know that it actually ended like that. And and then we haven't really had a Bond game since. So obviously we do have the Hitman team, IO Interactive, are bringing Project 007, which we've knew about for a couple of years. My money's on that getting a reveal at the Game Awards actually next week, 2 weeks till the Game Awards.
We've been talking about that for a while, haven't we?
It was going to come to Stadia because they did the Hitman trilogy, and then that was like their next big announcement. And if you remember, the Broccoli people came out, the Barbara Broccoli and whoever other Broccoli's who own the Bond license. My wife always laughs when I talk about that because she's like, she just pictures the broccoli people, like actual like these crazy sentient broccoli aliens that own Bond. But yeah, it's moved around a little bit. I think Bond's license is now with Amazon. I think MGM sold all the rights to Amazon, so you can see all the movies on Amazon Prime. And yeah, like I said, we've just got this void now. So it's such a shame that it couldn't be filled with a Lego franchise just to fill that gap. Absolutely. And I guess throwing it over to you, now we got the Skywalker saga. Where do you want to see Lego going next? Like, do they go back and do another complete collection? Do they pick up a new IP that we've not seen them do before? Because let's face it, they've done all the big ones.
Yeah, it's tough, that, isn't it? Because it's like, unless they start going really niche and going into like really diving into some crazy franchises, unless they could find some way of like doing mashups and like bring in, taking elements like looking at pulling loads of licenses together by getting some like crazy sort of like multiversal deal. I'm not going to go down any sort of multiversal path, but like, let's imagine that you could have a Lego game where you could take like elements from different sci-fi genres and like mash it together, and it just has that like comedic element as well of like, different characters interacting in the way that the memes would make it come out, or even fantasy as well. Something like that would be so cool. But who knows? Who really knows?
That in a nutshell was Dimensions, wasn't it? I think you had like Gandalf and Batman, if our memory serves me right, were some of the main characters. But I think it's because Skywalker Saga did phenomenally well. Like, it sold big numbers. So clearly either the demand for Star Wars was there or the demand for a Lego game was there. Like I've said to Richie a few times, I think they owe it to Middle-earth, Lord of the Rings, to go back after they shafted us all on The Hobbit, where, for those, again, I always mention on the show, for those who don't know, they did not do the Battle of the Five Armies. I actually tweeted them this week, believe it or not, about this. This is how I will fight this fight. I will fight this fight till the end. Because, for those who don't know, the Lego Hobbit games came out, but to try and get ahead of the curve, TT Games actually went ahead and brought up the game before the final movie came out, and they always promised, oh, don't worry, we'll get around to the Battle of the Five Armies, and they never did. So it's a big Lord of the Rings and I guess Hobbit fan to a degree by proxy. That really pissed me off. So this week, 28th of November, that's how recent this happened. They put out a tweet saying, sorry for an issue some people have encountered trying to play Lego Star Wars The Force Awakens recently. So again, quite an old Lego game. When was Force Awakens? 2017?
Yeah, quite some time.
So something happened there. Some users had a crash and were unable to play the game. We're happy to say the issue has now been solved. So that's TT Games just tweeting about an old-ass Lego game. And I replied saying, I also seem to be having trouble playing the Battle of the Five Armies section of the Lego Hobbit. Any ideas on that? 10 years on? ... Just thinking, like, are they going to actually... They never acknowledge me or reply to me. They just think, who's this troll who will not let this go? And it's like, it's a genuine thing, because I don't think in today's world they could get away with something like that, promising an entire third game and then having people buy the game and then it just not happening. So I would love them to go back, get the Lord of the Rings, get the Hobbit, and make, like the Skywalker saga, make the Middle-earth collection and just have a fully open world Middle-earth, every element of the story, and in a way that can kind of keep it open for whatever War of the Rohirrim looks like that comes out this year, whatever The Hunt for Gollum looks like that comes out next year, whatever that surprise sneaky movie that comes out beyond that. And I think if the time thing's right, I think there's a lot of love there to be made, and they can redeem themselves. That's one thing they need to do. But then, I guess like I was playing the Lego Indiana Jones ones. They could do the same. Now Dial of Destiny's out. That's a movie that's now, and you've got to guess Harrison Ford is done. Finally, surely at 83-year-old, he's got to be done, right? So do the same. Take the original 3 movies, take the 2 lesser liked movies, and do a complete the Indiana Jones Adventures collection. Because I think the IP is popular enough. It just, again, it's like, what are Lego going to do? Because like you said, if they take something that's a bit too niche, I think they'll run the risk of no one really caring. Like, you could even go with big ones, right? Like Hunger Games.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can really think of here is like looking into like your big epic TV sagas. So I mean, it might be a little bit more difficult with like your audiences and so on. But let's be real. I mean, Lego again can kind of push the boundaries with that, with such a wide age range of an audience. But something like a Lego Game of Thrones kind of thing, or House of the Dragon, something along those lines. But again, it's all this talk of like fantasy and sci-fi is what I'm thinking about, really.
I mean, if they don't want to do Bond, they're definitely not going to go with Game of Thrones.
Exactly right.
But that's when I think they need to realize that you can get around that. Like, you don't need to put the sexy stuff in. You don't need to put the gratuitous violence. You can just you can Lego-fy it. You can make it family friendly. I saw our Discord were talking about saying like why Bond wasn't used because of like the sexy ladies and the misogyny and stuff like that. But then at the end of the day, there's a lot of stuff in the other franchise like Indiana Jones and stuff that they've used that's like he flirts and talks with women all the time.
Pretty sure the Lego Star Wars games have got Princess Leia in a bikini.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I mean, how much of Indiana Jones Temple of Doom is culturally inappropriate, where they're eating monkey brains and stuff, and showing Indian culture off as like this crazy barbaric, we're eating bugs and brains and stuff all the time. So it's like you can always find stuff if you look deep enough for it, I believe. So it's one of them. But Lego, like, who knows? It's interesting. I think a James Bond game would be great, but TT Games, it's been a couple of years now since the Skywalker saga. They didn't work on Horizon. I mean, they could absolutely smash it out of the park if they got Nintendo to partner up with them and do like Mario. If you did a Lego Mario game, all of his characters get to explore the Mushroom Kingdom in a Lego world. And we've seen in the real world, we've had Lego Mario things come out all for a couple of years now, so that the partnership's there.
Absolutely.
And while we're touching the point, where are your kids at with Lego anyway? Where's
Josh
the eldest?
is very much into. He loves his Amazing Spidey and Friends Lego. He's very much into that. Helped me finish building the cheaper of the Millennium Falcon sets the other day, only to then have it drop on the floor and it's now in pieces again. So
we start again. We go again. That's the great thing with Lego, isn't it?
Yeah.
I saw a Lego Christmas tree in Asda this past week. Just a Christmas tree that was Lego. But it was like £30. I was like, do I get that and just make it a tradition that me and my daughter every year like build a little Lego tree together? And then I was like, I'm just buying it because I want Lego. More than anything. But speaking of buying things, Tom, we've got another news story following on from the Lego conversation here. Story number 2. December's PlayStation Plus games are out, and reading from the PlayStation blog. These, of course, are the claimable games that you can claim from the 3rd of December, so at the time recording tomorrow. Biggest game for the month, It Takes Two. This is the genre-bending co-op couch co-op play that won Game of the Year, actually, a couple of years ago. You've played this with the wife. Yeah. I think I have as well. Did you complete it? Because I got to a point where every time I was trying to swing across a nail in the wall, she would recall the nail and I would die. And she found that hilarious, and I didn't think it was too funny, trying to just get to the end of the game. Anytime there was some cooperative hand-holding needed, we didn't progress any further.
It's just the nature of our relationships, isn't it, really?
It
speaks volumes.
If there's a chance to wind us up, we'll both take it. It's all right. I got it back. I think I squashed it with a giant hammer about 50 times. But yeah, It Takes Two, like, great game. If those who haven't played it.
We played a lot of it, but like you, I don't think we ever actually finished it. It's one that's definitely very well recommended. Those sorts of like platformy, puzzle-based, cooperative games, I love them. They're incredible.
Yeah, and there's something just brilliant about being shrunken down, isn't it? We all remember Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and stuff, and it's essentially that as a couch co-op game. It's got some interesting like deep relationship stuff going on in it as well. Could be good couples therapy as well if you're playing it. Although it could make or break very much depending on your relationship. But yeah, It Takes Two is one. Following on from that, we have Aliens Dark Descent, which actually lands on Game Pass this month as well. So it looks like the Aliens team have pretty much just crunched the numbers and went out and got it on all subscription platforms. Aliens Dark Descent, it's one I've not actually played. This is a single player, which I actually thought all Alien games in my brain just would have went straight into multiplayer. But yeah, you battle to keep your squad alive against the deadliest foe mankind has ever faced. A real-time combat strategy game where you command a squad of hardened colonial marines to stop a terrifying xenomorph outbreak on the moon, Leith. And it basically looks like a turn-based top-down action. And I'm guessing you haven't played this one. I think it came out a couple of years ago. I'd never really heard of it. I actually thought it was a new release.
Yeah, no, I'm it's ringing bells. I think it's very much like almost like your single player version of like an XCOM type game, but not so much turn based, but more so like a StarCraft or a Warcraft or like a Command and Conquer, where it is real time and you do have to make the moves as they go.
Yeah, it looks like that.
Mm.
It came out about a year ago, I think. So it is the newest game on this list that we're getting. It's everything I'm looking at it just strikes me as though it should be multiplayer though. It's so weird seeing like the your whole squad stats across the bottom of the screen, and obviously they take health and you have to navigate that as you fight off xenomorphs and stuff. It looks really good actually. It looks different, I would say. But yeah, where are you at on the Aliens games in general? Did you play any of the recent ones? We had Firebreak. Was it Firebreak? Fire Team? Fire Squad? Something to do with fire. Me and Richie played that on a stream, and that was really, really fun. It was like The Division crossed with Aliens, and it really, really worked. And we got the news a couple of weeks back that there's a sequel to Alien Isolation coming, which for those horror fans out there, it's one of those franchises that I don't think it's ever going to die.
No.
Do you know one of those 80s franchises that nothing will ever really beat the original, but the franchise will live on somehow, no matter how bad the movies are, no matter how many times get rebooted, it's just in our lives forever.
I love the franchise, to be honest with you, but I've never really bought into the games. I don't know why. I just think it's one of those that I've just preferred it in cinematic format as opposed to the video game format. I don't know. Can't really put my finger on it.
Yeah, I remember watching the movies, like some of them when I'm younger, but all the new stuff, I think my wife's seen, was it Prometheus we had with Fassbender? That was like was it prequel reboot or something? Richie, I know, went to see, was it Romulus that just came out, I want to say? Alien Romulus?
Sounds about right.
And I feel like there's one in the middle that I've missed as well. I know we've had a couple of Predator movies here and there, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed Predators, and I know there was this TV series called Prey.
Right.
I don't know what platform that was on, but that was received really, really well. But I feel like it's just ballooned into all these different things now. I'm kind of at a loss for where, and like you, the games I look at and go, yeah, they look okay, but not enough to really to pull me in.
Yes.
And that's what I'm looking at with Dark Descent. It's like, it looks cool, but I'd rather go play something else or another Alien game, to be honest. And then the final one on the list is Temtem, comes to PS5. This is every kid's dream, apparently, is about becoming a Temtem tamer. Sound familiar? Explore the 6 islands of the airborne archipelago, discovering new species and making good friends along the way. Now's your time to embark on this epic adventure and make those dreams come true. Temtem's just Pokemon, right, Tom?
Yeah, I actually have got quite a lot of time in Temtem.
Come on then, fill us in. What's the crack with Temtem?
It is literally... there's no other way of saying it. I don't know why I have to say it. It is an online Pokemon clone with battle passes and the likes. It is fun. It is enjoyable. There is a single player story that you can go through. There are trainers in the wild that you can, similar to Pokemon, when you're just walking through your grass, you either get the random encounters or you walk in front of a trainer. There's gym battles, etc. There's just that online element to it that lets you see other people in the world. There's online markets. There's people you can trade Tems with. It's enjoyable to an extent, but it's never really going to live up to the hype of Pokemon, I'm afraid.
Is it, looking at the footage of it, because it looks like that they do evolutions or they have some kind of specials as well. Yeah. Is it kind of that where people are just hoping Game Freak and the Pokemon company pull a finger out and do something different for a change, and like anything that branches off and does something, like we saw Palworld earlier this year explode, because it's like Pokemon, but they're doing things that Game Freak and Nintendo would never allow, like guns for one thing, survival and stuff like that. Whereas, looking at a lot of the footage and what you're describing along there, it just looks like, Pokemon, but dare I say it, slightly better graphics than the recent ones I've played.
I really think that's what it is. I think Game Freak have very much fallen on their laurels in from the absolute high days of the original Pokemon games. I think it's just become so stagnant to the point that we love the franchise so much and so dearly, and it's got such a place, especially in 80s and 90s kids' hearts, right? We grew up with the anime and so on, but Game Freak have really just sat on that IP, and they've not really pushed it to an extent. And I think that's where games, exactly like you said, I think it's just where Temtem and where Palworld they've taken that sort of formula, they've built on it done something different with it, which has just captured people's attention. Like Temtem, I think the online element of it, of being able to see other people and see other people having battles, and or just having like your online arenas, but being able to see everybody there and so on. And then Pal World with that sort of taking that Pokemon Legends sort of like 3D massive open world sort of extent of it, but just doing something arguably better with it. Game Freak have got to do something with the IP now.
Yeah,
surely.
It's almost like showing them up in a way. And I think like you, I've got such reverence for the originals and such. And I recently got back. I played the Let's Go Pikachu game, and that was just me living my nostalgic Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow all over again with slightly better graphics. But you're right. It's when Richie played Arceus, he quite enjoyed Arceus, but then the most recent ones came out and they were full of bugs, and it was a bit more open world exploration. But I can't help but when I'm sat there playing on my Switch thinking like, it's slow, the graphics don't look great, there's no voice acting or anything still. I'm like, and I'm coming from games like Ghost of Tsushima and just much richer, like gaming's elevated itself so much. And I think we're at a part now where indie companies can come in with the power of Unreal Engine and just blow Game Freak out the water. And that's why we're seeing huge success in these like kind of niche places like Temtem and Pal World. And the only thing I think that keeps people going back is the genuine authenticity of Pokemon. Yes. Like if you didn't have such a big fan base. I mean, have you been playing the Pocket game on the phone?
Yeah, I have.
And that's it. And I'm like, I'm playing it because I'm collecting the original cards. But I know as soon as they start releasing new packs that go well beyond like the original 4 or 5 seasons, and they start to get to the what's the one that looks like an ice cream cone? And he evolves into a bigger ice cream cone, and then he evolves into an even bigger ice cream cone with like 3 scoops. It's like, and you've lost me. But yeah, it does. I mean, we've seen it with things. I feel like Monster Hunter has done so well with a similar, like essentially it's the same thing, right? You're not hunting pocket monsters, you're hunting actual giant crocodile monsters in the wild. But it's that online multiplayer, and I think Nintendo's internet infrastructure has just been so bad it's never been good, let's face it. You said just existing in the same world with your friends and catching Pokemon is all people want, and I think that's why Pokemon Go did so well back in the day. It connected you with your real mates out in the wild. Like we were all over that, of people of all ages, and the hype was real. And I think they've got something so precious, they've almost like protected it in cotton wool too much to like they wouldn't dare go out to a bigger developer and go, do you want to do a Pokemon game for us? And it's a shame that it's held back by the hardware and internet infrastructure of Nintendo, but I guess Nintendo made it what they have. So yeah, I do hope Game Freak kind of pulls something out the bag. They've skipped a year this year, so for the first time they've actually taken a year out, so that hopefully gives them a bit of polishing. Interesting indeed. And I think the last entry, the two, I can't remember the name at all. I own them and I can't remember them. My brain's saying Sun and Moon, but I know it's Sword and Shield. We had Arceus, and then Scarlet and Violet. Is that it? Scarlet and Violet?
Like it.
I feel like they're still sold like 50, 60, 70 million. They're like one of the highest selling games of the last decade. But that's the IP. So, but Temtem is there if you want it. PlayStation Plus catalogs also had some nice new additions. They added Sly Cooper 2, Band of Thieves, Sly Cooper 3, Honor Among Thieves, and the Jak and Daxter Precursor Legacy, which is, we've seen this trend, Tom, with PS2 games coming over to PlayStation 5 Premium. I've actually played a few this year. I got the Platinum in the original Jak and Daxter, never played it before, the original Sly Cooper, and the Daxter spin-off game that was a PSP title that they ported to PS5. So I've got 3 Platinums this year from platforming IP that I've never been back to, and it was great going back to a game that had no online. I know we've just been talking about Pokemon, but no online, simple level structure. You go in a room, you go from start to finish, end. You've collected all the bottles, you've killed that amount of enemies. That's it. There's your points tally up. And the Platinum Trophy was so nice to just chase something that was quite systematic. Yeah. And have you ever played Jak and Daxter, Sly Cooper? Where's your platform history at with these?
No, these are the titles. I guess these sort of like Sony exclusive sort of platform ones. I've sort of missed these ones, so I know of them. I know of the characters and so on, but sort of I guess I was more so a Ratchet and Clank kind of person. Than these. But I love the idea of them adding in the ability to sort of like gain those trophies in games that are quite ancient according by our standards. but it's nice. I think there's something to be said about being able to go back, re-experience that, but still being able to get something on your end of as well as just reliving the moment. Just being able to say like, look, I did it. I've gone back. I enjoyed it. There's the trophy.
It's just that I think it's like simple nature of it. We've seen obviously Crash have its remakes. We've seen Spyro have his remakes. Later on, is it this year still? We've got Croc getting his remake. The Gex trilogy is getting a kind of a port. So I think there's that element of nostalgia. I think these games hitting like they must be coming up on 20 plus years. Some of them. I think the Sly games must be 15 to 20 years old at least. So I think having them out there with like slight up-res polishing and trophies in high def and a couple of other things, it's great. And all these ports as well, they all have the rewind feature, which helped me out so much going for the platinum, where you would die and traditionally you would have to go through like 15 minutes worth of gameplay again, but you just go press the select button, 10 seconds back, and then you know exactly where the enemy's going to be. Especially there was a couple of time trial things. Shaving a few seconds off in a time trial, it's so handy with the rewind feature because you know where you made a mistake, but instead of going back and doing the whole level, you just rewind it. It's like it's like Prince of Persia, Sands of Time all over again, but across every title. So yeah, I for one of for this, they seemingly don't have any interest in remaking them. We seem to get Ratchet and Clank all over the place, but everything else is kind of like, Like I never played these again. Like the reason I went back is because I couldn't believe I'm a huge Naughty Dog fan of everything they've ever made, but I'd never played Jak and Daxter. I went Crash Bandicoot, took a gap year out or something and went off and explored the PS2, and then came back for Uncharted. So I just missed that Jak and Daxter like 4 or 5 game series. And they're great. And I could actually see elements of Uncharted in the Jak games moving around and the way the storytelling's coming into it a bit more from that. And then same for Sly, obviously. They went on, it's Insomniac, right? Sly Cooper. So they've gone on to do Spider-Man. And stuff. Oh wait, or is it Sucker Punch? Is it Sucker Punch, or is it Insomniac?
Sly.
They either Ratchet and Clank's Insomniac, so it must be Sucker Punch. Sly Cooper must be Sucker Punch, which then have gone on to do Ghost of Tsushima. So it's interesting going back and almost seeing the lineage of, as if they made a game about a raccoon and his turtle friend stealing things, and then now they're making Ghost of Tsushima, this like cinematic masterpiece storytelling. It's baffling how so many game companies have came on. But yeah, some more PlayStation classics added. Some free trials and other crap's been added in, but don't care about that. Moving on though, speaking of rip-offs and Pokemon and Palworld and stuff, we got some really funny news this week, Tom, of a brand new game just been announced, coming to PC, not coming to PlayStation, funnily enough, called Light of Motiram. I presume that's how it's pronounced. And Tom, I've never seen a more blatant rip-off of a case of copy my homework, but make sure you change a couple of things since Palworld did it to Pokemon. This is from Tencent. It's a new open-world crafting-based survival game called Light of Motiram. And for those watching on video feeds, if it's not already clear, this is basically just Horizon Zero Dawn / Forbidden West. I've seen it bandied around the internet. If it's dubbed as been Horizon Zero Fucks, because they literally zero fucks are given in terms of infringement on this. It looks like it's going to take Monster Hunter Ark Survival and apply the Horizon skin to it. And you know what the worst part is clear as a copy this is, it looks good. Like that's the thing, isn't it? Like they can get away with it. You've watched the trailer. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's I've got to bite my tongue here a little bit because it does look good. It's kind. I can see the appeal for it, and it's Tencent as well, so it's kind of like, it is blatantly ripping off Zero Dawn of Forbidden West. Like it literally describes, it's described as nature meets machines. It's talking about mechanimals. Like I'm pretty sure the mammoth that I've seen in it is just straight up ripped from the game. Well,
the Push Square article that I'm reading from has side-by-side photos of both games. And I genuinely think if you hadn't played the game and you'd only seen like trailers and you're aware of it, and you took the logo stamp off the game and swapped them out with the other images, you would not be able to tell because, side-by-side, these, aside from like Aloy and obviously and Val and stuff who were the characters, the world looks the same. Like our video viewers who are watching the trailer for Horizon Remaster and the one before was Light of Motiram. If I took any kind of just logos out of this and just played the trailers back to back with a seamless cut, you think it was just one trailer because they are so close in their visual art style. It's baffling. Like, this is going to be very much like a parallel case of Sony going to take them to court, surely. And it's a case of Tencent coming in. And like we've seen with other Tencent Chinese conglomerates, they don't give a shit about copyright. There's some great episodes. I don't know if you watched them back in there, some old Top Gear episodes when the three of them go over to China and they literally find models of cars that are 1-for-1 copies of cars sold in the West, like Mercedes and BMW, and they just don't give a shit. They literally just pick it up, the entire design, and it almost looks like someone's just took Horizon here and Tencent have went, yeah, just change a couple of names and maybe add a few quirks in yourself. What else can we steal from? Monster Hunter's popular. Take the mechanics in Monster Hunter and just cram it together. And you have apparently something. It's a terrible name, by the way. Light of Motiram. If you're going to
I don't even know what that means.
At least come up with something better. But yeah, and the ironic thing is, it's probably going to sell gangbusters because of this. Because you're going to get modders come in. You're going to get the PC community want to take the piss or laugh at it in a way. And it's almost going to have the memification thing where it'll sell well because it's not Horizon. It's like Horizon. But it's going to have lots of probably quirks that you can tweak and change. And, you couldn't fly these creatures in Horizon, but you can in Light of Motiram, so come and do it over here. And, it's
that being said, I mean, survival games do well. But Guerrilla are working on a multiplayer live service Horizon game as well. So
is it going to be, the Horizon Curse, where the first one came out and, what did it come out against? Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. Yes. And it got it got glossed over for all the Game of the Year awards because of Zelda. It wasn't the zeitgeist of conversation because of Zelda. Even though I personally think Horizon is the far better game, back to Nintendo's point of no voice acting, limited world, graphics are limited as well. And I'm not a massive Zelda fan, so I am a bit slightly biased. And then they brought out Horizon Forbidden West. And when did it come out? The same time Elden Ring came out. So it got shit all over again in terms of the zeitgeist and the pop culture. Is this a case of, as they're about to gear up to launch their MMO open world Horizon game, this gets ahead of them by like 3 months? And everyone goes, we've kind of seen that now. And it's just the curse of Horizon strikes again.
Who knows, man? Who knows?
It's a potential one. But it's interesting, isn't it, how it can even get so far down the production line of these people making it, and the devs seemingly look at this and go, are we okay to do this? Like, everyone learns about like plagiarism and stuff when you're in school, and don't copy your homework, don't copy the person next year. And we all do it a little bit, but that's because it's just a daft maths and English class. When you are putting something out into the public and profiteering from it, there's an element of legality that surely makes you question, like, are we doing the right thing here, guys? Or is it just a case of China don't give a fuck about copyright or infringement?
Yeah, exactly.
And no one can hold them to it, right? If it's on PC, like, all you could see is maybe Sony go to Steam and stuff and say, can we block this? Like, you partner with Sony. Can we block this? Or do we have to, like, almost like Cold War standoff of, like, we don't want war, but we might pull all of our games from your platform. Like, I don't think they'd ever be that serious, because we saw it with Palworld and Nintendo. They had to take them to court because it was so obvious.
Yeah.
But Nintendo, like, didn't really act immediately. They waited on it a little bit and did their research. So it's like, but you've got to imagine everyone at Guerrilla's like, that's our game. That's our game. Yeah, it's one we'll definitely watch, and I think seeing how it pans out over the next couple of, it'll probably relaunch 2025. So we'll see. Speaking of things that won't be around in 2025, however, Tom, the next star of the week comes from a PlayStation blog as well. The one and only Shuhei Yoshida has decided to step down after nearly 31 years at PlayStation. So as the PlayStation's 30th anniversary arrives next week, I think it's December 3rd, actually, the official anniversary date, he's decided to step down. Now, he used to be the head of PlayStation son, Shuhei. And then in recent years, he's kind of stepped into a role of shepherding indie games. But he's decided now is the time. He's just going to go play. I mean, to be fair, he's been doing it for 30 odd years, so he's just retiring.
Well, he's been there from the beginning for PlayStation, really.
Yeah, he's kind of like one of the figureheads. Like when I see him, I just think, yeah, he's PlayStation through and through, and he's such a humble guy. I don't know if you've ever seen him in interviews or on content and stuff, but he's just one of the genuinely nicest people you've ever seen in the industry. And in the PlayStation blog, they do kind of like a look back at all the years you've done, and they ask him about the original PlayStation all the way through to now, and the change that he's seen over the years and the success he's seen as well. But his big passion has been in indie games recently, and he was a big charge of, remember when PS4 launched and like it was all about PlayStation love indies? That was him. He chaperoned all of those things coming in. And in recent years he's done that on a kind of smaller scale. But everyone has to step down, so I think it's just a thank you for your service, I guess, to good old Shuhei.
Absolutely. It's a changing of the guard, isn't it, really? Interestingly, in the interview on the PlayStation blog, he does say that his the one moment that really stood out to him was when Journey won Game of the Year. So there you go, hand in hand right there with the indie titles right there.
Yeah,
love it.
And again, I think the indies definitely have the place. I think sometimes the bigger corporations forget that from time to time. Where it's like, yes, you have these AAA massive games, but look at the success like some indie games. Look at Balatro in the Game of the Year list this year. It's literally a game about poker. And it's in the Game of the Year conversation, which is crazy. And you think back to some of the games where you've had such a little experience, and usually when you are on a limited budget or there's only like one creative individual, the stuff that comes out, like Terraria, I think that was another one. There's just one dude, right?
It is one person.
Stardew Valley. We were talking last week about Roller Coaster Tycoon coming to Nintendo Switch, the collection. Mm-hmm. Chris Sawyer, back in the day, just wanted to make a game about theme parks. And he spawned a phenomenal franchise just off the back of his own brain. So yeah, gotta love indies, and you gotta love Shuhei. So enjoy retirement. That's why I say.
Well, absolutely.
Some of the people in the industry carry on for way too long, just because they feel like they have to. But what hasn't been carrying on for way too long, Tom, is the PlayStation Portal. It's just over a year old. We had the 30th anniversary edition release last week. I was fortunate enough to show you off my beautiful PlayStation Portal.
Yes, you were.
And there's now a rumor that there's going to be a black PlayStation Portal coming as part of a new accessory refresh, including things like a Helldivers 2 PlayStation controller. PlayStation Sony getting a bit freaky deaky with their styles now. We've seen the faceplates for the console. We've seen an Astrobot controller edition come out and do well alongside all the 30th anniversary stuff. Where are we thinking with a black PlayStation Portal? Are we thinking PlayStation 2? Because I feel like the PS2 doesn't get as much love, even though it's the biggest selling of all time. It almost like everyone defaults to the grey nostalgia of the original, but I've got quite a soft spot for the PS2.
I don't know, man. I mean, I am one of the early adopters. I was one of the lucky adopters, I should say, of actually getting in before Sony gave the cease and desist to D-Brand. I actually got the black plates for my PS5. Right. So my PS5 is sporting a nice black sort of chassis, I suppose you would call it, exoskeleton, whatever you want to call it, right? So the idea of a black PS Portal, I mean, I know we were talking about it the other day, but I'm sitting here kind of now thinking, ooh, that kind of fits my bill a little bit.
It looks good, especially if they do the coloured buttons, like the black buttons with the coloured sacred symbols on there. Because like you, I looked over Black Friday weekend of the different faceplates, and I was looking at the metallic blues and stuff, and the black one was the one that kind of pulled me initially. Then I had to do that moment. I was like, do I need to pay £35 for 2 bits of plastic? Even though they were discounted, I was like, I don't need to change it. So I refrained, thankfully. But yeah, a PlayStation Portal, like, it looks good in the white. It looks even better in the limited edition grey. But something about, I think, them branching out and just trying new things. Like, if seemingly the Portal's the huge success that it has been, variation's good, right? We saw it with the Vita and the PSP. They got like 30 different colour variants, I think, over the years.
Absolutely.
I love it. So yeah, PlayStation Portal. And I know I was talking to you last week when we all had some drinks together. The cloud gaming aspects came to it now as well, which just elevates the Portal into being so good. Like I'm probably at the moment probably about 50-50 split between playing on the big TV and just chilling on the Portal. And Richie was saying on it might have been last week's show, the show before, his girlfriend keeps coming in and saying, he's chilling on the couch with his Portal, and she's like, you know, the big huge TV's like right there. You could just play it on there, and he's like, the handheld, like just chilling on the couch with it in the palm of your hand.
He likes his handheld.
There's something more intimate about it, and the screen quality is so good. And I think now they've got cloud streaming, they just tweak it and add a couple of more features into it. Could be an absolute banger. There were rumors this week of a new PlayStation 5-esque portable in the pipeline. Okay. I don't know how much that's going to materialize realistically because of how much success the Portal's had, but we do know Xbox are working on a handheld. Phil Spencer said last week it's a few years out. So I'm almost expecting a bit of an arms race in probably, 2026 by the seams of it. We're going to have a Switch 2. Yeah. We're going to have a seemingly Xbox handheld. The Steam Deck's probably going to have a Steam Deck 2 out by then.
Yeah.
This is the new console war. Forget the actual big chunky boy sat in your house. I think the handheld's about to see a renaissance.
I think this is what you hit the nail on the head right at the start of the show, really, when you talked about like mobile as being, you know, the future for the next generation of gamers. Really, look at what the Switch has done. Like the Switch, the original, like the concept of the Switch when it first came out, people were kind of mocking this idea of taking the controllers out and doing all this with it. But you now look at the Switch and you think, actually, do you know what? The Switch is probably the most accessible of the consoles for mobility and getting around and doing what you want wherever you want. I wouldn't be surprised if all of the platforms, all of the big players are looking at that sort of idea moving forwards of taking away. The PS5 is fucking huge, right? It's if there is a way, because we know that technology, like as it gets, like as time goes on, we can condense it down to smaller and smaller things. If they can get that power into, like you say with the Portal, a handheld device, and just have like a smaller device connected to your TV, ultimately, that almost does the heavy lifting, then that's got to be the future of things, really. That's got to be.
Yeah, my biggest stumbling block when I look at all this conversation going around and rumors is I feel like Sony must look at the Portal now and go, the Portal just sits within our suite of hardware. They've got the main PS5, they've got the Slim, they've got the detachable disc drive in now. So that's nailed on, that's fine. The Portal's that kind of next bridging gap between bringing people in between mobile, because we've seen Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo have all failed epically at breaching that mobile market. Yeah. So they need something that's like a hybrid in between. And I think the one thing Sony have kind of struck gold with is that the Portal's quite cheap to make. At the end of the day, it's you slice a DualSense in half and you whack a cheap Android tablet in the middle of it. And they price them for £200, like $199 you can get a Portal for, which I don't think is that crazy. If you look at the consoles, $470, give or take $500. So then in that, like, is it being a compliment to that? I can't see Sony going, let's put R&D into this. Let's make something that's as powerful as maybe a PS4 Pro and a half, like maybe that gap between. Because like you said, condensing what's inside a PS5 unit down to a handheld, we're probably a good 10 years away before we get that growth and shrinkage of technology. The Switch 2 is going to be more powerful than Switch 1, but like Nintendo follows suit. It's always going to be behind a generation.
Yes.
Steam Deck's great, but it's a chunky boy. And I think what I love about my Portal is it is just so light. It's the battery could be better, yes. The screen's gorgeous though, and I think why would Sony put something out into the wild that risks detracting from essentially probably pure profit they're getting on the Portal? Like I said, you can get a screen for quite cheap if they've got the good. Again, you've got to look between the lines. Sony can get screens for cheap because they get them for their mobile phone division. Xbox, Microsoft, they have their tablet screens, so they might have deals there for these OLED panels and stuff. It's all kind of like just business semantics behind the scenes, isn't it? And who can get the most cobalt for their chips and all that. It's all who has great relations with Taiwan and all that. It's way more political than I think we'll ever know. But in just terms of that, why would they put investment into making, say, a £500 handheld? And who's your market when they're clearly winning the console market? 65, 70 million PS5s probably sold by the end of Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Nintendo have the handheld one. So I think the Portal sits in this sweet hybrid spot where it's fairly inexpensive to make. It's sold more than the VR2. So why would you bother putting more money into VR when this unit just sits here and ticks up? Richie didn't want one when it first launches, and now he's got it. He absolutely loves it to bits.
Yeah.
You're looking at it. My brother wants one.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like people just see it and go, I get it.
Absolutely.
So it's an interesting thing that again we'll keep watching. But I love the thought of a handheld resurgence. Like I'd be there day one for it. If they actually did it, I'd still be there day one for it. But are they going to learn from the mistakes of the Vita and they're not going to support it? Look what they just did. They just killed VR2 essentially.
I know.
They put out what Horizon? That Horizon game. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it from first party. So would you trust them to put out games for a handheld like consistently? I wouldn't. So
I don't know.
And then does it just become an indie machine? Like the Steam Deck does well, but the Steam Deck has the Steam library. That's the difference. If you can mirror the PlayStation library on there, you might be in with a chance. But yeah, I'm interested. I think what Xbox do the most because they've never had a handheld.
No.
So like they need to go big if it's their first one.
Yeah, that's exciting, right? That is exciting.
And we know xCloud works wonders.
Yeah.
We've used it for years now. So and Game Pass is that thing of like if I'm getting games for free and I can stream them and it does stuff native, I think if Xbox can make a deal with Steam to get the Steam Store on there, I think then it'll be the ultimate hybrid device. But we shall see. Speaking of going hybrid, and back to our earlier point right at the beginning of the show, Tom, with Xbox going multi-platform, there is a long-going rumour that Forza Horizon 5 is the next game to move over to PlayStation, but apparently the release has been delayed. So looking at the rumour mill that's been going around, apparently this game is done. So it's just ready to be put out, but there's a potential clash with things like Indiana Jones coming out next spring and where they're going to sit this in. But I put it over to you. Forza Horizon 5 is fantastic. I think there's a huge gap in PlayStation right now between Gran Turismo games, which takes a good, 10 years to turn around now. I think Forza would sell gangbusters on PlayStation. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think we've not got the success of the Need for Speeds anymore, have we? Like that's well and truly past its heyday. And Gran Turismo. I mean, I've got to be honest with you. Like, I'm not a huge racing game lover.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, but like the history of Gran Turismo is huge on PlayStation for the diehard racing fan. But I've always heard just from like people in the office, people at work, kids, the things like that Forza is the racing game. Like that is the racing sim. And the Horizon series in general, with it being like open world and so on, is just like. Again,
there's a gap, right?
Yeah, there is. Of course, there is. I can't name any other title at the moment that I can think. Do you know what?
The Crew?
This takes it.
The Crew, right? Is it the Crew Motorfest? I think is Ubisoft's latest one. But then, with a lot of these car games, is the licensing shuts them down. So like Forza 4 is about to get pulled, I think, this month. So that's no longer there. So it's almost like if they can reissue it, I wonder if it renews the licenses, if it gets a new release, maybe. But yeah, Horizon obviously is the more fun arcadey spin-off of the mainline series. I'm with you. I love Gran Turismo back in the day for what it was, but when it comes to simulation, it gets a bit boring for me after a while. Like I can appreciate beautiful, stunning graphics as much as the next guy, but when it comes to racing games, I want to smash and crash and drive into the side and spin off into a cloud of dust. That's what Horizon does. And I think in that gap between, Turismo and, like you said, Need for Speed absolutely falling off the face of the earth. Yeah. There isn't really anyone doing it. We've got, Wreckfest. You've got, like, a couple of indie titles trying to... You get the rally games still, but they don't have that gravitas that I think if you put Horizon 5 on PlayStation, I reckon you're looking at a good couple million units sold. Easily. And we've seen, like, Sea of Thieves doing amazingly well on PlayStation. Grounded did really well. Pentiment, it's like Microsoft might just look at it and go, well, we've exhausted all the cash we're going to get out of Horizon 5 on Xbox. It's on Game Pass anyway, so everyone who's got it's got it. If we put it on PlayStation and we sell it for what, 35 quid? $35, $40? Couple of million sales? That's easy bank for Microsoft, right? For just porting an old game. And this is where the economics of Microsoft's moves. As much as you might hate them as an Xbox fanboy, from a purely business standpoint, I don't think they're daft. It's the same with the other way. If Sony were, for whatever reason, the craziest mind of minds to go, let's port The Last of Us to Xbox. Can you imagine how many Xbox only owners would go out and eat that shit up? Because it's a AAA game on an opposite platform. So I enjoyed Horizon 5 when we played it, and it's again the great thing with Game Pass is when Horizon 6 comes out, I'll play it for free there as well. So it's like you just get the best of both worlds, really. But yeah,
Which you do.
PS5 version is apparently done. It's been delayed. I wouldn't be surprised if we see something at maybe Game Awards to just say like it's coming early 2025, maybe March time. Just stick a date on it, a couple of months out. Do it. More money. Speaking of more money, Tom, as we head into the later part of the show, a couple of updates from some games out there. Space Marine 2 is just past the 5 million players as it prepares for next month's update. And I just wanted to touch in with this because I finished Space Marine 2 a couple of weeks ago now, and it's been at the back of my mind still of how just good this game was. Where are you at with the whole... You said at the beginning of the show, you've always leaned more towards like fantasy.
Yeah.
Space Marine and Warhammer's got to be in your wheelhouse, right? Somewhere.
Right. Was a big sort of like Games Workshop kid growing up. You know, your Warhammer 40k in particular. Again, it is one of these series that I have just not dabbled in when it comes to the gaming universe, so to speak. But the amount of stuff I've heard about Space Marine 2,
it's so good.
Is it?
Yeah, it's just. Did you not play the first one? I take it like 10 years ago either. Yeah,
Nope.
It's basically Gears of War.
Yes.
With a Warhammer 40k skin over it. Is the simplest way to say it. It's the most video game that I've played in years, and I mean that in the best regard of that. It's basically you start off as Captain Titus, you drop into a world, there are xenomorph-esque aliens to fight, and Gears of War style, you have a chainsaw sword, a bolt gun, and you just go and tear shit up. That's basically, you've got squad mates with you. The graphics are stunningly beautiful in the new one. It's gory like Gears of War is. And it's that what I was saying about the platform games like Sly Cooper and stuff. It doesn't take itself seriously. It drops you on a planet. It goes, right, you get from A to B. That's your mission. Your objective is at the end of this pathway that it feeds you down. Open areas, you've got... it uses the recent one. It uses the same engine as World War Z. So the horde mechanics of the zombies, that gets translated to the alien xenomorph creatures. Yeah. So you can imagine 200 of them running at you, and you just have a bolt gun and a chainsaw, and there's just big giant space marine hacking and slashing your way through, and it's just ultimate explosion. It's a hero fantasy. You very rarely die, to be honest.
I like that.
You power your way through, just thinking you're an absolute boss. It's got some cool stuff with the chaos shit going on, the different chapters and orders of Warhammer 40k. And I was saying to Richie, I've gone totally down the rabbit hole. I bought like the anthology book of the 40k history to read through.
Really?
I'm hyped for whatever Henry Cavill's doing. It should be in Game of the Year conversation, but it's just a video game. That's the best thing about it. It doesn't take itself seriously. It is just a fun video game. And I'm so happy that it sold 5 million, because that just puts to shame things like Concord even more.
Yes. You
You think your audience wants this online Guardians of the Galaxy shitty PvP shooter 5v5 arena stuff, where actually they took a game that was 10-year-old Space Marine 1 and they put out and they've sold 5 million units for it. It's got a bit of co-op, got a bit of online. I think it's wonderful. And yeah, like I said, I can't wait for just to see what Henry Cavill does, because he's a big nerd with all this stuff. And I think 40k could be primed for like the next big TV. You know, when they tried it with World of Warcraft, like 2010, 15-ish with the movie, it didn't quite work. I feel like the lore of 40k is just ripe for like an Amazon
really
series or something.
So deep.
Like just the different chapters. And then now it's got me thinking, like, do I go play Bolt Gun? I installed Dawn of War, which was the RTS game from way back when. Bought that in a Steam sale. And yeah, I think I'm all about Warhammer again now. Because like you, I grew up with the little figurines, painting them and stuff. But I always start with the fantasy. So I never really, by the time I got interested in 40k, I was either growing out of it or I didn't have the money to buy even more figurines. And my mum and dad were probably like, you've already got a whole army here. Why would we go buy you a whole different one and more paints and stuff? So, but yeah, 5 million, not a number to be sniffed at for that. And this is a big success for the good old Embracer Group as well. This is probably their biggest success they've had since, remember a few years ago when they started buying anyone and everyone up?
You finally got a win, Embracer.
They did, yeah. The SpongeBob title last year maybe didn't do as good, but it seems like their money's safe with Space Marine. And the great thing about this is it's pretty much it's greenlit as Space Marine 3. We won't have to wait 10 years for the next entry, thankfully, but good to see. So shout out to Space Marine. Hopefully it wins some Game of the Year awards in 2 weeks' time. Final few stories. Liza P developer said the next project is going to be a sci-fi survival horror game. You're more into your Dark Souls games. You've essentially platinumed Sekiro when it came out. Shadows Die Twice back in the day. These aren't for me. I don't know how you have the patience to get through them. Did you dabble in Lies of P at all?
I did, and it is very good. It's very good. It's not quite Elden Ring, but it's still a damn good game.
Yeah, a lot of people said this is the nearest to From Software you'll get without being From Software.
Yes.
Which is a huge compliment in its own right.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah, they've defined a genre.
But Lies of P, everyone expected the next game to be basically a follow-up. So this one was obviously based around Pinocchio. Other things that are in the public domain, they seem to be linking into it. I think there's a big spoiler at the end of Lies of P that basically teases that, oh, look, I can't remember who it is. In my head, I'm thinking spoilers. Anyone who's not played Lies of P or is interested. I'm pretty sure it sets up like something like, is it Alice in Wonderland or something at the end? Like basically a character shows up at the end from one of these massive free IP and goes, oh, hello there, Pinocchio. No, I'm reading it again. This is just off the top of my head. But it opens up to like, I don't know, Walt Disney or something at the end going, ho, come and meet Mickey or something like that. Yeah. Peter Pan. I don't know what other free IPs got on public domain recently. You can figure it out basically. But apparently they're going to pivot and go towards sci-fi horror, which if they take the gorgeous art style aesthetics that they did with Lies of P, that like kind of steampunk-esque world, and put it into like a Dead Space type game, I feel like they've got enough goodwill now from how good Lies of P was. So just, go make what you want. Come back and make a Lies of P sequel in 5 years' time. And then, like how From Software just kind of bounce between IP to IP. Like they come out with Sekiro and then go, then we're going to do Elden Ring. And then they could easily go back to Bloodborne. And then they could go back to Dark Souls. And just like, they might not even be back to Bloodborne for another 10 odd years yet. But they're so well revered, they can jump between 5 different IP and just do well. So I think Neo is actually making a move into a different IP and having Lies of P in your back pocket for maybe the third game. I think it's a good shout. But what would you want to see out of a horror sci-fi?
I don't know. I mean, again, it's quite open, isn't it, with what you can achieve with that? I mean, where do you even begin? I mean, I'll eat up anything sci-fi.
They need to change the naming convention because I remember we ripped the piss out of them for calling it Lies of P originally when it was like, what kind of name's that? Like, you've got Pinocchio, but you could have said anything else, couldn't you? What was Pinocchio? I think I said String of Lies or something was off the top of my head, where it was like, because he's obviously a puppet. It was like, oh yeah, just the random letter. I don't like it in the game randomly there, but either way, we'll see what Neo was get up to in the future years. I think there's some Souls-like DLC that's actually come out for the game later on next year, perhaps, but we shall see. Final 2 stories really quickly here. Tom, can you remember Plague Inc? You must have played Plague Inc.
I still have it installed on my phone.
You do, right. So I remember Plague Inc. when it first came out on like the iPhone way back when. You must be talking like 2010, 11, 12. It was one of those original like App Store games that like took the world by storm. And then obviously we had COVID 5 years ago, which kind of like, the game saw like a massive renaissance where all of a sudden everyone was like, oh, it's a game where you can make a strand of COVID and actually plague the world as it was happening in real time while we were all in lockdown. They're making a sequel to it where you actually cure the world. So it's basically the exact same premise, but instead of making a COVID vaccine, I mean, actually, you are essentially making a COVID vaccine. What do you think of Plague Inc? How many hours have you put into Plague Inc? Because I think I got my fill once you covered the whole world once. It was like, right, I don't really need to play this game again.
No, you just played it for the achievements, really. Once you've got the achievements on there, you just go, do you know what, Matt, I'm out.
Plague Inc. Yeah, I remember it was funny during COVID when it was popping off again. I was like, I played this game like 10 years ago, and now it's seeing like a huge success. But it was kind of like, I think the premise of it's simple, isn't it? Especially on a phone with touchscreen. You just fiddle around with the genes. You picked how you wanted to disperse it, didn't you? It was like, do you want to do it by airborne? Is it liquid? Is it fluid based? And then just kind of see how it pans out.
And then you get
It's
Iceland close their borders immediately.
yeah, and it's
You
kind of
never get
mad.
that full spread.
It's mad to think that it basically happened in the real world.
Mhm.
and
Really did.
and here we are. Can you believe that was 5 years ago already?
It's mental.
Like all of that, it doesn't seem
Absolutely
real.
insane.
Like I remember when because we started this channel back in 2019.
Mhm.
So it was literally like our first year, wasn't it? As we went into, we did our video setup, and then it was like, oh shit, what do we do? And thankfully, our show was quite virtual anyway.
Yeah.
But I remember like how many times me, and Richie started every week by just going, mad, isn't it? How we've not been allowed out, or we've not like me and Richie talking was actually probably the most interaction we had with other people outside of our household every single week. And yeah, it's gone. We've all moved houses now. We've all moved on so much. We've got kids.
Yep.
And thankfully they missed out on all that because what pandemics every 100 years roughly. So they might get the tail end of the next one, whereas we'll be long gone. So we'll be long gone if Plague Inc. has anything to do with it. But yeah, sequel coming, make a cure. It seems like a next logical step, right? They'll probably have to do very little work to get this out because it's essentially just a skin change, isn't it? Just mix it up and change the title of it. But yeah, bit awkward, but heal the world, as Bob Geldof will have you sing. Final story of the week, Tom. CD Projekt Red have partnered with Netflix for a new animated series. This follows on a new story straight from Nice City. If anyone did watch Cyberpunk Edgerunners, there's some more in the pipeline. Did you check out Edgerunners?
Again, it's on my watch list.
Oh man, it's so good.
Yeah,
It's
I've heard.
like I'm not really anyone for anime, but I absolutely adored the Castlevania series.
Mhm.
I love I don't even know why I watched Edgerunners. I think it was just a couple of podcasts I listened to. Every single one of them. You know when you've just got different groups are all singing from the same hymn sheet. And I think everywhere I listened to this, they were like, Edgerunners is phenomenal. So I was like, you know what? I've got Netflix. I'll jump in and check it out. I think I watched like 4 episodes back to back to back to back. And I was like, right, I'm in. And yeah, it's definitely up there. Did you watch any of the Castlevania ones either?
Yes, I've watched all the Castlevania stuff.
It's kind of a similar, like it's a pretty much bang on art style, one for one, but with that cyberpunk, like everything's like neon and futuristic.
Yes.
Writing's great, story's great, and the blood and the gore is just like next level anime shit. But yeah, more projects come from it. It probably has to tell us a different story, but I think the world of cyberpunk now, that's the great thing with it is that now they've built the city in the world. In especially the underworld, you can just tell different stories. Maybe get a cameo from Idris Elba, Keanu Reeves in there, perhaps to tie it all together. But yeah, where did you round out with Cyberpunk? Obviously, we all played it back on Stadia when it first launched, and then it collapsed, and then they had Phantom Liberty last year. And like, did you ever go back to finishing it? Or, like, it's like me, I fell off when I lost my save file in Stadia. I was like, well, I'm not going to start it again.
See, I picked it up again. I started playing through it. It's probably been a couple of years now, though, since I actually last started playing it again. But I went through a phase where I really got into it. Like, I really, really started getting back into that game and was really enjoying it. Played quite a way through the main campaign. Never got around to the DLC, but I certainly fell in love with that game again, which is why Edgerunners is on my watch list, because I just gotta find time. You know what it's like. It's
This is what when it's doing this show every week with Richie now, it's just like, oh, you don't know how good you have it.
I know.
Like he says he's busy changing his room and moving house and stuff. I'm like, you don't have a child though to get up and entertain for 10, 9, 11 hours a day. And you have 2, so you're double fold on what I'm used to. But yeah, it's finding those niche times. But I'm like you. I bought the Cyberpunk Ultimate Edition on disc. It's like to have it in my collection. Haven't even installed it yet. It's just like sat there in its box, like ready to be opened and played. But it's like between other titles and like I said, family time and stuff. It's where do you go? But it's been an interesting one to see. And in like, you know what, credit to CD Projekt Red, like they survived a shitstorm to seemingly like their goodwill from The Witcher held out like a dam ready to burst. And I think if maybe they didn't do The Witcher beforehand, I don't think they would have survived. But that between Phantom Liberty coming out and being terrific, and then I think the anime series maybe like buffing people's interests with like different mediums, because they've seen huge. I remember every time a Witcher series drops, Witcher 3 sees huge sales. Maybe not so much when the next series drops, because that's a different story. But Anime seemingly does it. But yeah, that's it for our stories of the week, Tom. And as always on this show, we round up by looking at this day in video game history. We're recording on November 30th, so this will be the last podcast we get before December truly kicks in. Looking at this day in gaming on November 30th, let's look back across the years. One standout one for me, Populous the Beginning.
Wow.
26 years ago.
Wow.
That was like the big, I think the start of the RTS era, where we had Populous, and then we got Age of Empires, and then we got Command and Conquer, Age of Mythology, Battle for Middle-earth, Star Wars Empire at War, the aforementioned Warhammer 40k Dawn of War. Just like, you were eating good back in the late 90s, early 2000s on RTS games. And Populous for me was one of the first ones that I had it on PS1, and I remember being like, it's the only game of its kind on a console, because everything else you needed a PC for, it felt like.
Yep.
But yeah, Populous the Beginning. Top tip, you click every tree on the first level and it gives you unlimited money, I want to say. Just a random one. You just had to click on
just
every
in case
single
you ever go
tree.
back and play it again.
Yeah, if you ever go dig it out and have a go. Anything stand out for you on this list?
Yeah, absolutely. Unreal Tournament. I mean, I remember it was kind of like the birth of real multiplayer sort of FPS type stuff. A lot of people would argue between UT and Quake. For me, it was very much Unreal Tournament. Like, the amount of time I put into Unreal Tournament playing with friends, literally just going crazy, like after school. We used to have LAN parties. Like, we literally used to take our full computer, like desktop setups, tower, monitor, keyboard, mouse to each other's houses, would just like hook it all up, maybe get like a pizza in or something like that.
Yeah.
It's proper old school.
Play till 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning.
Oh my god, yeah. No, Unreal Tournament for sure.
Yeah, that's true. 25 years though.
I know.
Quarter of a century of Unreal Tournament. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
What else we got? Dead Nation. Shout out to Dead Nation 14 years ago. That's for me, that's the next big Helldivers reboot, Dead Nation. It's basically Helldivers with zombies. Moving on to December 1st, just as we skip ahead a little bit, the Wii Fit board came out 17 years ago in Japan. That was a moment in time. I remember the Wii Fit board always just calls pretty much any tall person a beast, because your BMI is fucked up on it, because you're really tall. So it's like, doesn't matter how skinny you are, your height to body ratio doesn't work out. So it's like, you're a beast, get off the board.
It doesn't compute.
It's like, you bastard. It's the only time a Nintendo product has ever been rude to me. And then 9 years ago, Tom, Rainbow Six Siege. 9 years.
That's exactly
Siege.
the one I picked out there as well. Yeah. I know.
It's still going.
Still going. Very much still going.
It's mad to think like how, I know me and Richie talk about it every week, but just Ubisoft's fall from grace is just shocking. Did you ever check out Star Wars Outlaws, or was that just not been on your radar?
I'm waiting for a Christmas discount. Right. I must be honest with you. It is very much. I was riding the storm. Let the storm ride its way out. Pick it up after. Yeah.
It's really good. I've got the platinum in it. Really enjoyed it. The Lando Calrissian DLC is out this week, so there's more to go back to. And they've fixed loads of bugs. They've tweaked the stealth and stuff. But the report from that was it sold just over 1 million copies, which is mad to think. The Star Wars IP and the impact of Ubisoft, 1 million, and we've just said about Space Marine selling 5 million. Yeah. Like, that's it's mad how if you get it wrong, you royally can get it wrong in today's games industry. And on the flip side, Palwell comes out and sells 40 million units for copying Pokemon. You really just, truly is a roll of the dice when it comes to game development nowadays. But then let's look at one final day, December 2nd. What have we got? Pikmin on the original GameCube, 23 years ago. Shout out to Pikmin. Don't think I've ever played a Pikmin game, but I know they're very, very popular. And then more recently, 2 years ago, the Callisto Protocol. Shout out to the Callisto. It's one of them ones that I've never quite got to, because you'll know my interest in horror games has only kind of came about when we started playing Resident Evil on the channel. Yeah. So I've never really gotten them, but I was looking this week on Monday, Cyber Monday. Ooh. Resident Evil 2, 3 get PS5 releases. Like disc box PS5 releases with all the fancy upgrades and stuff. Amazon only $24.99 for the brand new release of the PS5 version. So when I was like, is this the time to jump in? Because I've been saying to Richie, I'm waiting for RE1 remake There's something fundamentally in my DNA that will not let me start a new series at 2. It's really bugging me. So yeah, but yeah, 2 and 3 out on Monday, and any big things in your pipeline for the end of the year? What you've got your eye on? Like you mentioned over Christmas, get a little bit of downtime, hopefully, to dig into something.
Yeah, I think it's very much always going to be a catch-up game for me from now on. So it's always going to be digging back into that library, picking things up. Like I say, the plan really is at the moment finish off 16, playing through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, pick up Ghost of Tsushima, and spend a good bit of time with that, I think. And subject to the remaining available time, probably Outlaws.
Yeah, love it. And I guess while our audience checks in with you from time to time, where are we at with the eldest? Where's his video game legacy at now? How is Dad trying to impact his hobby and interest onto his son?
It's interesting you say that, because actually we sat down earlier today, and I had him sit down and try to play through the reignited Spyro games.
Oh yes,
so we were trying to get to grips with 3D controls, which I think still for a 3-year-old boy is kind of challenging. So then we booted up Sonic Mania.
Wow.
We played a little bit of Sonic Mania earlier today.
You know what?
Yeah.
My daughter, she doesn't play it, but she loves the Nintendo Switch because of the noises it makes, and it's like perfect size for even little baby hands. She just jumps on the spot with Sonic. The first level, Green Hill Zone. She likes the music. She likes the colors. Doesn't have a clue what she's doing. But that's transpired to every controller in my house. She points at and just goes, game. And my word, the amount of times I've had to take the controllers off her because I think she's going to drop them. She picked up my 30th anniversary DualSense the other day. And I was like, no, like don't touch it, put it down. Like that's Daddy's game. You can have the crappy old PlayStation 3 ones in the back. But yeah, it is interesting how we grew up with 2D and it evolved naturally with the whole industry. And like we said, kids these days, they've got touchscreen, they poke everything, they think it doesn't have like physical input. But yeah, games, it's an interesting thing to learn, isn't it? How the evolution, it's actually we almost like were drip fed how it worked. Like we didn't have dual sticks, did we? We just had up, down, left, and right.
Oh yeah.
So we had to really, really learn that. But we probably learned that when we were 5-6-year-old-ish.
Yeah.
When N64 came out. So I think we were already a bit more older. So yeah, who knows? But yeah, it's an interesting touch point. Yeah, it's nice to hear from you. But yeah, thank you very much, Tom, for jumping in, filling for Richie as he builds his new digs out. It's been nice having you back on. We'll have to try and get an episode where we can get you, Rob, Richie, and me all together, because we've never actually done that. Not for like an episode, but just like some kind of celebration, or maybe when we get to 100 episodes of this one, because we did say at the start you've unfortunately missed out on episode 69.
I know.
Last week, but
I know.
It's been great having you back anyway, and I'm sure the audience have loved you. Let us know in the comments below what you'll be playing this week over Christmas as we head into that. And did you pick anything up good in the Black Friday sales? But that's been it for the GamerGuild podcast for this week. My name's been Chris.
I've been Tom.
We've been the GamerGuild podcast, and as always, folks, play whatever makes you the happiest. We'll see you next week. Have a great one. Bye.
Bye.